It is finally time for Phase 2 Classic WoW, okay? In SOD, it's coming out in 10 hours or less. We're gonna be going over all the changes that were found already by players. I'm gonna react to this like interview with the comeback kids, stuff like that. We're gonna do some some stalling, okay? Professional stalling. We gotta, you know, pass the time here for like 10 hours, right? Until Phase 2 is out. My plans, guys, is I'm gonna be playing until like 1 a.m. Something like that, maybe like 3 hours into the phase, and then going to sleep, and then waking up at like 8 or 9 a.m. and then just playing till late that day. It is a bit awkward release time for the Europeans, you know, 10 p.m., but it is what it is. At least it's 10 p.m., not midnight, right? We get to play for a few hours. That's cool. And apparently the 50% XP buff is live right now. That's pretty cool. So you can level your alts 50% faster. I like how they put the WoW token in. That's the WoW token icon, guys. Is this a sign that later we're getting the WoW token? I mean, they always put this in. Whenever it's like an XP buff, even in Wrath of the Lich King, before they added the WoW token, it was the same icon. Alright, I want to go over this interview over here, guys. This is going to be a bit of a react. I have not watched this. I think this happened yesterday or the day before. And this is the developer interview with the comeback kids. I think they're like a news channel on YouTube, right? So we're gonna check this out. 30-minute video, all right. I will try to not pause this video too much. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know who these people are. Do they only cover WoW news? But I've seen like a couple of videos of them like a few weeks ago. They came up on my YouTube, but I've never heard about them since before that. So there may be. They might have covered like other games, and now they're covering WoW. They seem to have a good, how do you say, like personality, right? They're rappers. You think they're rappers? Does this guy look like a rapper to you? I mean, actually, like he kind of does. I don't know. I don't think they're rappers, but hey, if that's the case, I guess it's pretty cool. Let's just play the interview.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're not gonna waste any more time. We got the dev interview today. 30 minutes straight of just.
Is this 1080p? Okay.
Loads of information, man. Grab a cup of coffee, sit down, let's jump
I got
right
my
into
coffee.
it. Once again, you know, me and Lance, my brother, we wanted to thank you guys. We really appreciate you taking the interview, talking to the people.
1 sec. Hey, guys. What?
Hey, bro.
Yo, thank you for sub, man. Thank you, Hayara. So, this is Nora Valletta. I don't know what she is in Blizzard, but she, like, works on SOD, right? And this is Agrind. He looks really mad. What? He's just staring at my soul. Like what is all right, okay, so that's who the developers are, right? So we got Agrind over here. I think he's the lead game designer of Season Discovery. And then this is Nora Valletta, who funnily enough her surname is the same as the capital of Malta, so maybe she's Maltese, I don't know.
Community, get with us. I appreciate the feedback and everything.
Hopefully the sound was good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So starting off really quick, right off the bat, easily the most consistent and common questions we get under our YouTube comment section, we see on Reddit, the forums, has got to be about dual spec and if it's going to be coming in Season of Discovery. I'm sure you guys saw.
I personally want dual spec. I understand that, like, you know, there's like pros and cons of having dual spec, but I still like, I just want to have dual spec, right? I think it's nice to have a dedicated PvP spec, and then you have a dedicated raiding spec. You know, that's what I would do, right? But let's see what they say.
Saw this one coming. I know you mentioned it at BlizzCon.
Agrind looks
you had
mad.
a couple tweets here and there, and teasers, hints, and stuff. But with Phase 2 being like really
gonna
big
shut
on
it
class
down.
specs finally coming online, like Shadow Priest, Balanced Druid, Elemental Shamans, could you guys give us any updates on dual spec and if it's coming in Phase 2 or maybe later?
You know, we see dual spec as something that has the potential to be a really big gold sink. And so implementing dual spec at lower levels would be kind of challenging, especially since so many players, as you know, in Phase 2 will be saving up to buy their mounts. But as for later phases, y'all will just have to wait and see. Perhaps
that makes sense.
You should start saving up just in case.
It's gonna be expensive,
okay.
boys.
All right, that's fair. So I guess we could
500 gold dual
go ahead
spec?
and lead with that into Lance's questions.
So we really loved in.
I want to pause for a second. I like the answer there. So like basically they didn't add dual spec yet because in like phase 2, we can only farm so much gold. We're only level 40. We're gonna be buying our mount as well, right? So like players don't have that much gold to afford the dual spec. So they might add it in like phase 3 or phase 4 when players have more gold, and that way it will be a more effective way to remove gold from the economy, like via gold sink, right? So that actually is clever. It does suck to like wait another phase or two, but like it's gonna be better for the game, I guess, right? If they added it now, how much gold can it cost? Like maybe 100 gold? And even that would be hard for people to get 100 gold when they have to pay 90 gold for the mount as well, right? So they're just waiting with it.
BFD in
They didn't
phase
say it's
1,
not coming.
The difficulty at the start of the phase, we're wondering, is Nomura going to launch with a similar difficulty, or is it going to be closer to like the post nerf?
So, great question. I think the short answer is generally speaking, when we launch a new raid or something, we tend to try and have it be a little bit tend towards the more difficult rather than easier. It's significantly easier to kind of tone a raid down or a dungeon down than it is to kind of tone it up if it's a little lacking. So I wouldn't say we're specifically trying to necessarily make it as hard as BFD was or harder, but it will likely be a little bit more challenging for the first few groups that go in there. And it's simply because too, a lot of those first groups that really kind of sweat for it and go hard at it, they may not have all their runes, they may not have the best pre-raid gear they can get, so that they'll likely have a tougher time. But just like BFD, we took some pretty quick action pretty early on for things that were a little bit outliers. And we'll almost certainly do the same here if anything is super out of whack.
We also wanted to talk, speaking on No More Gan additionally, we wanted to talk a little bit about how maybe the resistances might work in there as well. I'm sure you guys have seen on the forums and stuff also. I know in BFD, certain bosses like Gamura had the high armor, Kelris, pre-nerf had a lot of high magic resist. Can we expect a similar type of situation heading into No More Gan with the mechanicals? Because some of them are immune to a lot of different things. Can you give maybe some feedback and information going along that?
Sure. So I think it's safe to say nothing will be outright immune to like bleeds and poisons and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
However,
Okay.
There will be likely additional resistance. It won't be. It will certainly
That's
not
big
be
for
as
feral
punishing
druids
as
and
BFD
rogues.
was to casters early on.
Also
That was
warriors.
probably too punishing, and we learned some lessons there. But yeah, I mean, we want to keep it thematic. Bosses having resistances is a very vanilla mechanic, and that's something we do want to keep thematic. But I don't think it's going to make a ton of difference in the long run to most classes. So I wouldn't stress about it too much. But
so you're going to be able to bleed and also like do poison damage, but there might be resistances against them, so like you do less damage, I guess. I'm okay with that. I always like the fantasy of like bosses having resistances, but not when it's like outright immunities. Like, oh, you can't deal any frost damage, any fire damage, any bleed damage, any poison damage. It feels like too punishing, so it looks like they're trying to get away from that and they're just gonna put resistance instead. But is it gonna be like how Kelris was in BFD? I remember he had like 75 arcane and shadow res, and you just couldn't do any damage pretty much. Like even though you could hit the boss, I would be doing like 10 DPS on my arcane mage. It would just be resist, resist, resist. So he wasn't immune, but it was like pretty close. So I don't know if they're gonna tune it up like that.
No, that's good news. A lot of people were really concerned about some of their specs and stuff. Heading into No More Gan, especially warriors and rogues. We also had the community ask a few times as well about world bosses. Is there any way or a time frame that you guys are going to be adding potentially more world bosses? Maybe can provide us with extra loot and maybe make the world feel more alive to get us out there instead of just
that would be
popping
pretty
inside
cool,
of raids and doing battlegrounds and stuff.
I think you'll have to get out there and see what you find. I like, we like to say never. And I don't think I would call this, I don't think this qualifies as a world boss particularly, but there is, you may find different creatures out in the world. There is a particularly terrifying blood-crazed troll wandering around Stranglethorn Vale that we previewed that goes by the name of Kadamu. I recommend avoiding him at all costs, though. I don't think you'll have a particularly good time if you choose to fight him.
Yeah, he's like the Fell Reaver in TBC, right?
I saw that in the preview. That looked really, really interesting.
I will say that for those who do like to embrace danger, if you're in the proximity of Kadamu and you're fighting other people, that could make for an interesting and rewarding encounter. So keep an eye out for him. Keep a safe distance.
I like that word, rewarding. I like that.
It gives like an
That
aura on
always,
players.
in my mind, it just a bunch of loot pops up in my head, so that sounds pretty cool.
All right, so is there any concern among the team that with like the increase in power through the new items and the runes, that might trivialize the open world or
Very good
the
question.
dungeons we're going to be doing in this next phase?
Power creep is something that's kind of always, on our minds. I will say that overall, the open world is already quite a bit more dangerous in Season of Discovery than it is in regular Classic era to kind of help make up for that.
True.
We'll
Not
continue
dungeons,
to
though.
keep an eye on things as the season unfolds, because we do want to make sure that the world continues to feel dangerous.
Yeah, a lot of what we would have done here, we've done kind of with feedback in mind. Like we had heard a lot of the same complaints going into phase 1. People saw the previews at BlizzCon and they're like, the world's going to be completely trivial. And I don't think I've heard a ton of feedback to that effect in actuality. And
Yeah, the mobs have a lot more health outdoors,
I think
so
we did a pretty good job in phase 1, and we're going to kind of keep that sort of curve going.
it's only the
if
dungeons that
makes
feel a bit
sense.
easy.
So, yeah. But we're always interested to hear about it. One of the other things I will say about outdoor difficulty too is that we do think it's important. Like, we never want to get into a situation where we'll actually one-to-one scale it with like your item level or anything like that.
Oh, that
that's
would
a
suck.
very like
No,
Modern
please.
has tried that at various points to various degrees of success. And
No,
we
not
do really
again.
think, and they kind of arrived at this conclusion as well after doing it the first time. I think it was in Legion or at the end of Legion.
That was such a
that,
terrible
it is
idea. I
important to
can't
have
believe
power
they did that.
progression on your character. And while the world may feel pretty dangerous when you're leveling, as you gear up, as you get all your runes,
Yeah,
as
it
you
gets
get your
easier. That's
best
the whole
slot
point,
from
right?
Dungeons and raids, it will start to feel less dangerous, and that's a good feeling. That's a good progression.
That's what an RPG is.
And so
You can't
that's something
just
we do
scale
wanna
the
make
mobs
sure we
according to
maintain.
your
we
gear.
think it's going to be a little bit spicier than than you might remember it, just like Phase 1 was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I will say, like, I feel like that's a reoccurring theme throughout all of World of Warcraft. It's always a struggle as you're leveling and then finally reaching max level. But then once you get that raid gear, you feel a lot more powerful and killing monsters, doing whatever it may be. So that is awesome. That Season of Discovery, even though you're getting all these new things, that still is the case, which is really, really good.
They didn't
We
say anything
wanted to
about
ask
dungeons,
a
though.
pretty big one. I know this is a really loaded question. Do you guys have any plans
Loaded.
for our characters on this server at the end of Season of Discovery? Will we transfer maybe to Era and lose all the runes and items? Will they just be
That would
completely
suck.
gone? Do you guys have any updates on maybe advancing Season of Discovery on its own, or do you guys have anything to sort of add to that?
So this is kind of a difficult question to answer for a lot of reasons. I think it's safe to say we likely won't take your characters to like a strictly no changes original WoW world. And they certainly won't go to an existing era realm, because at the end of the season, you're going to have so much new gear and so many new things.
Yeah,
that,
of course.
They would be it would be harmful potentially to an existing era realm to inject all that into. So that's something we're very cognizant of. But that said, we're still discussing what the final home will be. Will it maybe be some sort of evergreen version of Season of Discovery? Will it be a new environment entirely that is somewhere between Season of Discovery and Era? I think that the overall goal is to make sure you end up someplace cool, someplace interesting. And hard to say what that specifically will be right now, but we're
Maybe
pretty committed to
SOD
making sure you end up
TBC,
in a
guys?
good place.
Awesome.
And just to add on to that too, like we're still very far from the end of the season.
Yes.
So this is one of those things that I think there's great opportunity for us to kind of shape the future based on player feedback. So let us know what you think.
The community, especially the WoW players, they will let you know what they think. They're very open about how they feel.
love
Oh,
it.
yeah.
That's good. That's
Guilty,
good.
guilty.
It's good news to hear.
Can we expect any changes to any of the SM wings in Phase 2? Will they all be open? Could we consider them? I know we saw them like accidentally leaked at BlizzCon that it might be a raid in the future. Is anything going to change there?
No changes to Scarlet Monastery. You can expect it to behave how you'd expect to. It's 5-player dungeons. A lot of those images, just to kind of touch on that, a lot of those images at BlizzCon that we accidentally included in our slides, sort of, I've answered this a few times, and I usually say that they represent aspirations and things and potential ideas more than fully
they
formed
weren't like
thoughts or,
100%.
a roadmap of stuff we've committed to.
Okay.
We want to keep the surprises coming and and keep the actual roadmap of what specific content we plan to
I see.
tackle a mystery as long as possible.
Because like they showed Karazhan, they showed also Gnomeregan, and they showed Scarlet Monastery at BlizzCon. And then when they confirmed Gnomeregan, then we thought like, oh, we're gonna get Scarlet Monastery then, and then also Karazhan. So apparently that's like just an idea. It's not confirmed. Yeah, there might not be a Karazhan. Maybe. Maybe there will be, maybe not, right?
Guild banks, instant mail, 41-yard nameplates, and also like stuff like enchanting vellums. These are all just like quality of life things we get asked about every day in the comments, in the forums, on Reddit. Is there any sort of plan to introduce some of these things inside a Season of Discovery? I know you're kind of on a pretty tough line because people want that classic feel, but they don't want too many quality of life things to where it feels like retail WoW. Do you guys have any thoughts on some of these things being
retail WoW?
That's a really long question with a lot of potentially different answers. I think in terms of quality of life, there's always things that are on the table there, and we're always looking at what sort of like interface improvements we can make tactically to make the game make more sense or a little bit easier to actually use, like actual literal quality of life. One thing in particular you mentioned there are a few things in that category that are actually just not quality of life. They're major systemic gameplay affecting things. 41-yard nameplate comes to mind with that. The example I use when we talk about this is if you're in a cave and it's a multi-level cave, if you have 20-yard nameplate, your field of view is sort of limited, and what you can tell is around you. And as we just discussed, one concern that folks have is, will the original WoW world feel too easy?
Yeah, you're going to be able to see them.
Power. Well, that is actually a power gain too. Having perfect situational awareness up to like your max like 41-yard range gives you a ton of advantage to see mobs above you, see mobs below you, and it makes you less careful about how you navigate those tight and close spaces. Now, that's not to say we won't do it. But what I'm getting at is that these are things we have to actively think about whenever we make changes, because we could very easily get into a situation where in the moment one of us is annoyed that I can't see the thing I'm shooting at as a mage. I can't see the gameplay. It's like, that's annoying. We should change that. But once we change that, there's no going back. Like that will be an expectation forever. Modern is the way Modern is because of incremental iteration over time. And Modern is great for what it is.
Modern,
but I think there are
guys.
Definitely some changes that have been made to World of Warcraft over the years that had longer lasting ramifications than maybe people planned for. And so I think a lot of people are asking for like, things like this is like, and just any change is like, I really want Classic Plus, but I don't think many people are really asking for Modern Minus. And I don't think we really want to get into a place where we make Modern Minus.
Modern Minus. I've never heard of that before. That's a new one.
So it's just something we have to think about. So the short answer is, we're always looking at that kind of stuff. The long answer is that we have to be very careful where seemingly innocuous changes to ameliorate specific minor concerns may have larger impacts on the game writ large.
So keeping it in the convenience or quality of life style of question, another thing we constantly get asked about is like a pet or mount tab. I know there might be some extra mounts or pets that we get in Season of Discovery.
Are there that many mounts
any
though?
idea if we might get something like that?
So I mean, bag space is indeed a premium in Classic. The short answer is we won't have anything planned for that at the moment. But the longer answer, I think, kind of piggybacking on what Josh already said.
Just make bigger bags.
As we kind of think about Season of Discovery and how it represents Classic, but with, a bunch of changes, one of the things that has been on our minds is, what sorts of quality of life features make sense in Classic era without fundamentally changing player behavior in such a way that moves us too far from what makes Classic feel like Classic. Certainly the mounts and pets thing, like that's a different category than the nameplates quality of life thing that folks are requesting. But, one thing we might consider with, bag space, for instance, perhaps having limited bag space actually forces you to make trips to town more frequently, and your presence in town is what maybe makes the town feel more alive. So that's one of the things we might consider when we kind of weigh these quality of life features. There's definitely, room for some of them, but it's something that we have to be really considerate about as we move forward.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. You don't want to, go too far with it, I suppose. Moving into like the next question. So in the what's new video for WoW Classic Season of Discovery,
I feel like every question this guy asked has been completely shut down, and just look at Agron, how happy he is, and look how sad this guy is. It's like, come on, just give me a W, man. Like, and it's like, none.
Guys released before phase 1, it showed a waste rune slot for paladins that had actually the Howling Blast Death Knight ability, which was pretty exciting to a lot.
He said it like me, howling, bro. Guys, you see, that's how you say it. Howling blast, not howling blast, howling. Okay, that's how he said it too. I want to replay that.
That had actually the Howling Blast Death Knight ability, which was pretty exciting to a lot of people. Do you think we could expect some sort of Death Knight variant for paladins heading into later phases? I know,
whoa, relax,
you know, for
bro.
even getting some of the runes, we were getting teased by the NPCs about how you
just
could
go play Rat,
be
bro.
seeing more stuff like this. Is that something that could be coming?
So as we kind of designed runes in the season, you know, we've said this before, but we've been very, you know, fantasy forward. We had various archetypes in mind when designing our runes. For example, for shaman tanks, we were kind of thinking like it's kind of an Earth Warden type figure. And for rogues, we kind of have some runes that help you live up to a class fantasy of being a pirate or a swashbuckler. And so, you know, kind of thinking in terms of that, I know some folks saw, you know, that the Howling Blast Death Knight ability. As we kind of went around about our process for designing runes, we did a lot of moving runes, stealing kind of like abilities and spells from later expansions and just kind of seeing how they felt on these classic characters. And certainly we had way more runes in the beginning than we could possibly manage. It was just way too much complexity. And so we did have to cut down quite a bit. That being said, I never want to rob you of your hope. So I'll just say, you know, you'll have to kind of see how the season progresses and, you know, see what you discover.
Yeah, a lot of times just for insight on how those things get made. There's a lot of like temp assets and promote and things that they kind of cobble together for those promotional videos. So I wouldn't necessarily read too much into it, but you know,
same with the data mining.
Yeah,
same thing there. Yeah.
It is fun. I don't want to like Nora said, I don't want to crush anything. It's fun to do what if scenarios, you know. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily expect paladins to be running around howling blasting people anytime soon.
That's funny. Yeah, you know, WoW players, man, they take one thing and they go a mile with it. So
I love it. It's a feature, not a bug.
So moving on, in the recent update you guys gave us for the new PvP event in Stranglethorn, we know it will be a free-for-all event. Can you tell us a little bit more on how you plan to stop people from just getting into a giant raid and zerging down like very small packs of people?
What about win trading?
Also,
Good
what
question,
about like, win trading and stuff like that? That's a very big question.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem.
As for the getting together in massive raids and zerging people down, mess around and find out, I guess. I don't think it's going to be a good idea to get together in a massive raid group.
You'll see. Give it a try. See what happens.
I'm not doing it.
Yeah, as for like win trading and things like that, like when designing something like this, we really want to try and make something that is fun first, and then sort of like shore up the exploits and shenanigans a little bit later. Like we have some things in mind for that. I'm not super worried about it. There will always be someone who tries to find a way to actively avoid like PvP in a PvP event. There's also a lot of self-policing the community can do for some things. I'm not necessarily saying win trading, but just shenanigans in general. If you're running around in a group of 5 and you're trying to do something, you're going to have to be in the zone, and you're going to have to be, you know, around other people that are wanting to PvP. And you may find that you're a ripe target if you're trying to pull off some shenanigans for an actual organized group that actually is tooled up to fight. But like anything, Ashen Veil, we're making adjustments for days and weeks afterwards, and if we need to, we'll just keep adjusting it. I'm not super worried about it.
Back to like the data mining.
All right, so
and maybe
the way he countered the win trading argument necessarily was that if you're win trading, people are gonna find out and then come kill you. I don't know if that's a good enough answer. I feel like people might, you know, organize a win trading defense. So like they have an area where they're win trading, and if someone tries to come to kill them, they just kill the people trying to kill them, right? We'll see. Hopefully it doesn't become a problem. Because like the issue with players is they're always going to do whatever is the easiest route to victory, right? And if your goal is to get the mount from the STV event, and then you find out you can do some win trading, that's going to be something that interests you, right? And you're going to do that because it's going to be a faster way to get the mount. So hopefully there's something in the game that prevents people from doing this, or there's like set rules against it, right? Because it would definitely blow if people are just like taking advantage of the event and not actually doing normal PvP. Yeah, he didn't really get into it that much.
Be taking things with a grain of salt. We noticed that some of the items for PvP specifically for this event are interesting, to say the least. In particular, that hunter bow with the strength.
Whoa, spoilers! Guys, spoilers! Hello! Sorry. What is this? 1.8 speed bow. Class hunter, equip chance on hit to increase strength by 50 for 15 seconds. Damn, so that's like a melee hunter bow. If it procs from auto attacks, I don't know if it does though. That's a very fast bow. I don't think you want to use that if you're ranged.
It's something, right? And casters only receiving like spell power rings. I just want to know maybe a little bit of the thought process behind some of these strange items.
One thing, so the hunter bow in particular, let me just point out something. Someone might not have noticed. That effect, that's not an on-hit effect. That's an equip effect. And there's a key difference there. That means it can proc off of multiple different things, not just shots with the bow. So, you know, I think in general what we're trying to do with a lot of itemization in Season of Discovery is give little nods to some of the new things we've added. Like you might notice cloth items with extra armor on them. Could be pretty good for a warlock tank. You might notice a bow with an on equip, not an on hit strength proc might be kind of good for a melee hunter.
Yeah.
So that's the things we're thinking about. I think I've seen a lot of comments from some of the data mining about like weapon speeds and stuff like that. I think some earlier versions had some old data values, but even the newer version, they're like, why isn't this optimal? Why isn't this 3.8 speed or 3.6 speed? It's like, does Blizzard not know how to itemize? It's like, yeah, we know how to itemize, but it's a level 40 raid. And if it's not optimal, it's probably because we don't mean for it to be perfectly optimal. And generally speaking, we're okay with some of the things that come from the raids or the PvP being like,
you tell him, Agrant.
At 60 and stuff like that, but we want to get out of situations where you feel like you have to use any of these items forever. And so we're trying to be pretty methodical with how we design the items to make them very good at the level, but maybe have a little bit of diminishing returns as you level up and find
I completely agree with that.
That's awesome.
I feel like you don't want to put items that are so good that like people will keep using them for a longer time than intended, right? Like I think the staff from Calrus, for example, is maybe a bit too good. You know, it's almost like Best and Slow and Gnomrigan, right? So they're trying to, you know, make good weapons, but not too good weapons that they're gonna be potentially the best weapon in the next raid, right? But they're still good, but not like too good, you know.
Kind of answered your question.
Greatest answer you could have given, man.
I will say, I think in just to build up on top of that, like I think in phase 2 we've been, we've really doubled down on trying to add an even more diverse range of items. As a team, you know, a lot of us play WoW, so there's a fair amount of putting ourselves in players' shoes and going, okay, what would be really exciting for me to, find? And so, yeah, I'm really excited for players to encounter some of the cool items we've added.
That's awesome. That's awesome. My particular favorite one is, and probably a fan favorite, was the totem for the shaman enhancement. I thought that was so cool, man. I love that one.
Throwback to original WoW cinematic.
Spoilers, come on,
dude!
spoiler
I remember
alert.
I saw that as a kid, and I was freaking out. I thought it was so cool. Something that I've personally always loved in future iterations of WoW is that there are a really good amount of battlegrounds to sort of participate in and enjoy. Do you guys have any plans on maybe adding new BGs for Season of Discovery, or even potentially bringing some other ones from other iterations of WoW into Season of Discovery?
No plans on that at the moment.
Yeah,
we'd love to continue, hearing player feedback on that, what they'd like to see.
It'd be kind of cool at level 60.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, sounds cool.
That's
that
kinda
was
when
a
you
hard
said the
no,
other
I
day,
guess.
Sky. So we've really enjoyed all the cool Easter eggs, like the Tauren Rogue that teaches the Shaman the Dual Wield rune, and other cool things like that have kind of been added to the game. I'd love to know, is Season of Discovery an alternate reality from the main classic universe or the retail game, or does it have any implication on maybe the future story of WoW or just in general the Warcraft universe?
This is a great question. I think it's safe to say, I think we've already kind of commented on this and said, I hope we have anyway, because I'm about to say something here. I don't know, but I hope it's not new news.
I think we have,
but
yeah.
I think we have, but I wouldn't call it an alternate reality. I don't think we really want to get into sort of timey-wimey shenanigans with Season of Discovery. I think it's more of like this is just a little bit expanding on the world as you knew it, and we were very careful and very deliberate to try not to stomp on any existing lore or anything that came afterwards. And you're not ever really going to see us likely do that too much. We might create new questions that you might wonder about, and that's cool. But a lot of things. I think at BlizzCon in interviews we described this as like sort of like any change to any character or anything we add to any character or add to the world is like found photographs. It's basically like you were digging through pictures from your parents' photographs and you found them on vacation somewhere you never knew they went. Didn't really change how you think about that person, but it does give you a little bit more insight and a little bit more. Oh, hi, I never knew that about this character or this location or whatever. And that's cool. It's just expanding the world as it was, really, rather than trying to redefine anything.
So
Yeah, I
we
see
really love that Void Touch quest line that we got with the BFD and the shadowy figure and that awesome dialogue we got with that quest chain that gets those items for leatherworking and stuff like that. Is there any chance we get to see her again, perhaps, or maybe get any more gifts from the Void?
It's been really interesting to watch the commentary on that. I mean, hard to say. We'll see. We'll see where it goes.
I love that. I love
good
that. I also, speaking of like quest lines and stuff, I really enjoyed the that Paladin had the really long quest chain that was really deep for Divine Storm, and then Warlock had the same for Metamorphosis. I was a little bit sad to see that not all classes had these grandiose, awesome quest
mage
chains.
just go get books.
Could we expect
the
some of
mage
these
one.
classes to get some of these really awesome, deep, lore-rich quest chains heading into the future in Season of Discovery?
Oh, I was going to give the generic, you'll have to wait and see type
Yeah.
answer, because it's one of those things like we don't want to spoil too much up front.
Yeah,
There's
I
only
think in a
rules
lot of
like that
cases we
this
tried to
phase.
do things
We
that
gotta
made
get
sense.
long
But we
questions.
recognize that, depending on a lot of factors, your preference or your whatever, there may have been some inequality there for some classes. And obviously we have a team of designers and they all kind of have their own sort of input and touch they put on everything. And so we're trying to get a little bit more consistency as we mature a little bit into the later phases.
Okay, cool. I also had one other additional question. It was actually about the
big
banning of
question, guys.
GDKPs, and what is sort of like the measure of success for like, okay, this ended up being really well. We're gonna keep it in the next phases. Let's just keep it going. Like, what is the sort of measure and the yardstick for saying that sort of thing?
This is another tricky one to answer. Really, like we're going into this, we're hoping that it has a more positive impact on social ties, like people going and joining guilds, forming regular raid groups, things like that. That's hard to measure, though. That's really that's almost like a feeling, right? The thing that is a little bit easier to measure is how successful are we at being able to cut down the amount of illicit activity in the game and gold selling and gold buying. Obviously, we're looking at that stuff pretty closely with this, and also just the other benefit we get from removing GDKP is sort of it helps. It helps remove a common obfuscation for a lot of bad behavior, whereas GDKP is a good blanket way to launder a lot of gold, and that makes it a little bit more tricky and a little bit more nuanced to be able to actually catch people who are not just selling gold but buying gold. And
Gold
so that's one of
laundering.
the things that we're kind of excited about with this is that might help in there a little bit. So there's a lot to it. I don't know. I can't really get too deep into it. I don't want to give anybody the keys to the castle to bypass anything we're doing. But there's definitely data and metrics we're going to look at, but there's also just do we think it has a positive impact on the game and how the game feels? And that's
Yeah.
something that is harder to define, but we're all players too. So
In terms of just how how it feels, like we again lean on player feedback for that. So let us know what you
Yeah.
think, how it, if you've noticed a detriment or like an improvement to your experience.
Awesome. And one last final question. You were sort of touching on like how people can sort of like read between the lines and get away with something without actually like, doing something against TOS. Like, I would love to like know if there was any like clarifications on what isn't allowed, what is allowed.
the reality is a horse by any other name is a horse, right? Like there's a lot of
True.
people think they're very clever and they're coming up with ways to try and bypass this, but I don't, you can call it whatever you want. You can call it alliance kill points, you can
Peace
call
boom
it commodity DKP, Arcanite bar DKP or whatever,
Arcanite bars.
You know what it is. I don't want to be super specific right here and give like a way for someone to spell out how to bypass rules. We're looking at more than just gold, and we have a lot of ways to look at this.
Hey, Grayson,
and
thanks for the
ultimately,
host. Thank you.
I think that no matter what happens, it's going to greatly decrease
Welcome,
the
guys.
sort of frequency and volume around this, and that's something that's going to be, I think, a positive to come from this too. You're not going to see your trade chat spammed with nothing but GDKP advertisements.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what, with this policy and with other policies, there's almost always going to be some amount of what feels like to players gray area.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say, like at that point, it's kind of up to the interpretation, by the folks that we have enforcing these, our terms of service. And I would just say, like, it's up to the players to, figure out what level of risk they're willing to incur by engaging in some of these activities.
Yeah. Once again, thank you guys, man. I know it's probably a madhouse over there, what you guys are doing. It's once again, you guys are kicking butt, dude. I've played a lot of video games. Man, you guys are on point. You guys are really, really on top of it.
I think, give you some cute thumbnails. Josh, do some kind of a
thumbnail face. I love that.
That's a thumbnail.
I can do one of those, guys. One sec. There you go.
Thank you guys so much, man. I appreciate it. Once again, you guys are kicking butt, dude. You make, I guess, my job super easy to just come on here and make content about the game and bring people updates based off what you guys are doing.
Was that good?
It's so much fun. And Nora, get on Twitter a little more. I want to see some more opinions from you too.
Yeah, get on Twitter, Nora.
I'm
Start
sick of
tweeting like
Agron
Agron so you can get
tweets
1,000 messages a day
You're going through
about changes.
It's so bad. It's so bad. I know, but like, this is how you get the real juice,
I've started to misdirection like things.
Dude, that's all.
Dude, he's liking stuff on purpose that has nothing to do with what he thinks, so that people get confused. He's like, oh, let me just like this random comment here, even though I don't agree with what this guy is saying. And then people are gonna be like, oh, see, I told you. Like, he's such a mastermind,
liking
man.
some really weird stuff.
I've already done that. I've already done that.
I appreciate you guys for your time. Really,
us,
it means the world for a person like me. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Have a good one,
Have
guys.
a good one, guys.
Have a good Monday. See ya.
Okay, man. They had a lot of really good information in that interview. A lot of it was loaded questions. I'm not
really okay. So I'll link this in the chat, guys. This was a good video. One second here. Here you go. So I think there were some really good questions here, like specifically about like the GDKP stuff, also like the what's it called, the itemization question, like the the win trading and stuff, right? Also, they confirmed this was huge. I was not expecting this, guys. Normergun will not have any poison or bleed immunities. Honestly, here's my opinion about this. Like, I don't play a rogue, right? I don't really play classes that like care too much about this, but I like that change, right? I understand that people are obviously a bit upset that like it's not really RPG, that like you can maybe bleed a mechanical mob. But what if I told you that maybe the way a mechanical mob bleeds is by oil spilling out? I think that makes a lot of sense. You're a rogue, you put the dagger in the right spot, oil comes out of the mechanical mob. There you go, my friend. All right. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. They're gonna have resistances instead. So like maybe it will have high resistance to poison, high resistance to bleed. So it's not as effective, but you can still do some damage. I always like that more. I don't like flat out immunity, I prefer like high resistance, you know, so at least I do some damage. So they confirmed that. That was very surprising. Also, they asked about dual specialization. It's not coming in phase 2, but they gave a good answer why. So like basically she said that they want the dual specialization to act like a big gold sink. That means like it costs a lot of gold for you to unlock dual spec. And because in this phase, people won't have too much gold because it's only level 40. And they're going to be spending 90 gold on the mount. They're going to be spending, you know, gold on other stuff as well, right? It's maybe not the right time to put in a large gold sink. I think they're going to make it for phase 3. I think in phase 3, we're going to have not many reasons to spend gold. We're not going to be buying a mount. We already have our professions at 225. So where's the gold going to be spent on, right? So I think that's like probably the perfect time for them to add dual specialization, because then at, you know, at level 60 you can get epic mounts, so that's another gold sink. So I do agree with this take that she said. Hopefully that's the case, and they're not just like playing us, because I would love to have dual spec in phase 2. You know, I want it now. Give me dual spec, please. But I will give them the benefit of the doubt and hope that they have a better plan with it, and maybe there's a cool quest line to unlock it as well. Who knows, right? So you're gonna have to wait another phase for that. I'm just gonna read over these bullet points really fast. Not anything implemented Blizzard would consider a word boss. Yeah, no word boss, but there's some new enemies that are interesting, but not a word boss. I mean, there is a word boss in the next phase when you think about it, right, guys? There's the what's his name? Prince Najak. He's like the dude in Arati that, like, when you kill him, drops title charm. It's kind of like a word boss. He has a very long spawn timer. I don't know, like, it's weird, right? Like, it's not like the standard word boss though. But yeah, Blizzard doesn't have any new information to share regarding how characters will be stored after season of Discovery ends. They are still discussing the right place for players. So they said like you won't go to Era most likely when season of Discovery is over, because your character is like very different. You have more gear, more spells, so you're gonna be on your own server with other season of Discovery characters. That's what they said, but it's not confirmed. They kind of like hinted at it, right? So it's too early. It's like way too early to even be asking this question, I feel like. Blizzard had a lot to share regarding quality of life features. Oh yeah, so like somebody asked that should we get instant mail, 41 nameplate distance. They kind of like shrugged it off. I mean, they said they might add the nameplate distance because a lot of people want it, but once they add it, they can't take it back, right? So it might happen, I don't know. Also, they confirmed that this item here is on hit effect with also your melee attacks, apparently. So, you know, anyone here planning on playing Melee Hunter? Yeah, this is going to be your best slot bow. So, most likely, right? Your 50 strength proc, that's pretty good. Oh, yeah, somebody asked about lore. But they kind of like said that, I don't know, what did they say about this? I kind of like spaced out when I heard lore. I don't think they're caring too much, right? They said like the lore of SOD is the same lore of original classic, but there's like added stuff. It's not like a different timeline. It's the same timeline, but like you never knew that like maybe your parents were, you know, going on that particular vacation and now you find out. That was the example he gave. Like you saw a portrait, whatever. It's not like an entire separate thing, right? Basically. Blizzard doesn't recommend players to try to find loopholes around the GDKP ban, as they will find out. So yeah, guys, I know that you like doing GDKPs, but listen, you can't do them anymore. Not in Season of Discovery, okay?
Where are the Kek and Sanos?
Don't try to you know, circumvent the ban. They're gonna catch you, okay? You're gonna get banned, guys. Don't do that, all right?